Some of the harshest criticism of Donald Trump has come from conservative commentators. National Review editor Rich Lowry pronounced Donald the most fabulous whiner in all of American politics, writing that Trump acts like a spoiled child. CNN's Chris Cuomo put that question to the bombastic billionaire.
One of the columnists, Rich Lowry, says that you are the most fabulous whiner in the world.
Well, I think he's probably right. I am the most fabulous whiner. I do whine because I want to win, and I'm not happy if I'm
whiners
not winning.
Winners?
And I am a whiner, and I'm a whiner, and I keep whining and whining until I win.
Joining us now from Stamford, Connecticut is Rich Lowry, and with us here in L.A., Leslie Marshall, radio talk show host. Both are Fox News contributors. Rich, no whining in this segment, but you would think Donald Trump would hate the column that you wrote in Politico, but that wasn't his reaction.
Let this be a lesson to all of us how we all need to whine more, I guess. You never know quite what he's going to say. And my point was, you know, his complaints about the debate are really silly. It's an iron rule of these debates. If you're the candidate who's the highest in the polls, you're going to get more scrutiny and you're going to get tough questions. And do we really believe if Jeb Bush had ever called a woman a pig, that wouldn't come up in a debate? And Trump and his fans, you know, argue, well, the question should have been more substantive. He got several policy questions and whiffed on every single one of them. So he's right. Whining. Maybe he's whining to win, but he's certainly whining.
Right. What sometimes gets lost in the chatter about Megyn Kelly's question is that she was quoting some of Trump's own previous words. Leslie, it's kind of hard for the media to embarrass this guy. Look at the way he handled that whining column.
Oh, very true. Unfortunately, whining is not going to be policy and get him to win. And Rich, I think this is the first time we've agreed about something, and that's the whining.
Ding, ding, ding.
With regard to Donald Trump.
We have consensus on the set.
I'll have to reconsider my views now.
You know, Donald Trump is so much, and we're here in L.A., right? Donald Trump is so much that celebrity. I mean, swooping in on the big helicopter, and this is what people are lining up for. This is what the media is showing up with the cameras rolling for, and he's eating it up. I mean, as long as you spell his name right, it seems to benefit him. Unfortunately, I think it's a sad statement in our political landscape right now.
Rich, you say in another column, you're clearly not a Trump fan, I'm going to put you down in that category, that Trump is incoherent, your word, on such issues as immigration and defunding Planned Parenthood. But if you haven't noticed, the Republican voters who like him aren't particularly hung up on the specifics of his policy approach.
No, you know, no one has benefited so much from media coverage and media attention as Donald Trump. It's really the starkest demonstration of the principle that there's no such thing as bad publicity that we've ever seen. He benefits from the negative coverage. He benefits from people saying he's going to be toast, as they have repeatedly and been wrong, because Republicans are just so sick of our PC culture and our press when there are these shaming campaigns against anyone who says something controversial, and usually the target slinks away, cries, apologizes, and Trump won't do that. So every time there's a negative story, every time there's a controversy, it benefits him, at least among his fans.
Leslie, your side of the media tries to say that Trump embodies some of the ugliness of the Republican Party. But that doesn't wash, in my view, because he's so different than every other candidate. Jeb Bush, Ben Carson, Mike Huckabee, none of them are like Trump, for good and bad.
Well, look, I think the media has made Donald Trump #1. I mean, seriously. And one of the reasons the media shows up is because, you know, they want their ratings, they want to sell their newspapers, they want people to read their blogs, their columns.
But hold on, I don't think that gives Trump enough credit, because I often hear this, like, the media are giving him this airtime and this ink and all this online coverage, therefore we are responsible for Trump leading the polls, leaving aside the fact that the viewers get a say. You know, Trump has media skills that compel a lot of journalists to cover him, and if some of the other candidates had that, they'd probably get more coverage.
Well, a lot of that has to do with name recognition. I mean, that's key in an election for anybody. If you, when people vote, it's the #1 reason that somebody, you know, says, I'm going to vote for this person over that, is name recognition. He certainly has that. And then we have celebrity. We saw that here in California with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had absolutely zero experience, became governor of this state in a recall
got reelected.
election. Right? Yeah, absolutely. But for for when you talk about what Donald Trump is saying, I don't think it's all of what he's saying, is how he's saying it. And you had said this very different than the other people running. He's a real shoot from the hip, non-PC, anti-establishment, outside the Beltway guy, and that's really working for him right now.
People seem to like that. Rich Lauer, you talked about whining and other candidates, cry or issue statements. Trump doesn't do that. But the way in which he picked a fight with Fox News after that presidential debate in Cleveland, and as I mentioned, has taken various shots now and then since then, although it's largely cooled off because of a truce. Do you think that helps Trump among people who don't like the media, don't like Fox, or just like to see Trump, take a club and whack people?
I think it's mostly the latter. I think as long as he's on offense, as long as he's throwing punches, as long as he's attacking, his fans like that. And Howie, I don't know whether this is a conscious strategy on his part, but he's really a genius at changing the subject. After those John McCain comments, what happens? He gets up on stage, he gives out Lindsey Graham's phone number, and all of a sudden the McCain comments have disappeared and we're all talking about Trump giving out the phone number. Same thing with the debate.
Right.
I thought his debate performance objectively, and the polls, the internals of the polls back this up, was quite poor. But the conversation after the debate, it wasn't about his debate performance. It was about whether the questions were fair and about his feud with Megyn Kelly. So he's kind of, inadvertently or not, a genius at this.
Hey, that was no accident. Let me show you, Leslie, cover in the Week magazine about the debate. It shows Megyn Kelly practically trying to choke Donald Trump. We do have Brett Baird gnawing at his leg down below. Would Tim Russert or Ted Koppel, after a tough debate performance, tough questions I mean, be ever to be depicted like that? Do you think there's anything sexist in this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, quite frankly, she was doing her job, and I think it was appropriate that the only female on the panel would ask this question. This is one of many tough questions you're going to get when you run for president, regardless of your party and regardless of how much money you have in your bank account, like he likes to remind us constantly. But this cover bothers me, but I'm not surprised, because we see that in not just American politics and American media, but sexism's alive and well, unfortunately, in 2015.
All right, stick around, guys. We'll have another no whining segment coming up. The tabloid headline would be Socialist Sanders surges. Is the press now big on Bernie? And later, Meghan McCain on the Trump debate fallout and how prominent women often targeted for online abuse. Bernie Sanders is getting all kinds of positive press as he continues to draw huge crowds. 27,000 here in Los Angeles the other day, 28,000 in Portland. That has turbocharged the news stories and sheer speculation that Joe Biden may now jump into the race to challenge Hillary Clinton. And Leslie Marshall, the media led by the Wall Street Journal, reporting that the vacationing vice president, talking to advisors, sounding out about a possible run, still a long shot. Is the press trying to draft him?
I think some people are trying to draft him, the press included. I think it would make it more exciting. I think it would actually help Senator Bernie Sanders, and it would hurt Hillary. But at the end of the day, Hillary has a campaign that not just has money, but a lot of time behind it. And the question really, I think, that they're looking at is, can in 2, 3, 4 months at the most, the vice president accomplish and take a bite out of her with all of the years, quite frankly, she's been planning for this run.
Rich Lowry, and I didn't get the memo that you're in New York. I thought you were still in Connecticut. Is the Biden chatter, and there's been a lot of chatter, driven by liberal elements in the press that now fear that Hillary Clinton could be a weak nominee?
Well, he's certainly getting a lot of favorable coverage. I think there are two overwhelming factors there, though. One, obviously, the tragic context of his son's death, and then just the most ingrained and deepest bias in the media, outside of ideology, is just wanting a horse race. So of course reporters want Biden in the race, and he's also an incredibly unguarded guy in contrast with Hillary Clinton. So it would be like Christmas every day for reporters if Biden actually ran, so all of them are rooting for it.
Rooting for Joe. You know, Politico had a headline, Biden said to be considering one-term presidency. This was picked up everywhere. Well, the person saying it is CNN contributor Carl Bernstein. It's mostly his opinion, although he talked to some people around Biden. He said some say yes, some say no. So not exactly a hard and fact. Speaking of not hard and fact, BuzzFeed had a piece saying Al Gore weighing a run, or at least people around him talking about the possibility that he might jump into the race, although Politico then knocked that down, and now the Gore campaign has pretty much denied it. Your thoughts, Leslie, on the media turning to the former VP?
To Rich's point about the horse race and wanting somebody to scream malarkey because they're not getting good enough sound bites, even from Senator Sanders, this is malarkey, okay? Al Gore is not going to run. This was sort of like almost an opinion that became complete speculation, that became rumor, that everybody ran with, including ABC News after BuzzFeed put it out.
Yeah, which is embarrassing. Let me get Rich in for our final few seconds. I know you would love to see Al Gore run, but it does look like this was a media-driven fantasy.
Probably. And on this horse race thing, there is a horse race on the Democratic side, and it is driven by Bernie Sanders. And he was widely discounted initially, including by people like me. He went around the media, has generated a real enthusiasm among the grassroots, and I still don't think the press is taking him seriously enough. He's a real threat to Hillary in Iowa and New Hampshire and perhaps beyond.
Well, I agree not taking him seriously enough, and I think there needs to be more media scrutiny of his policy positions, which he lays out there, very liberal policy positions by the socialist senator from Vermont. All right, Rich Lowry, Leslie Marshall, thanks very much for stopping by. After the break,
Thanks, Howie.
Meghan McCain